If you've been paying attention at all on social media or on the news about Grants Pass, Oregon, you've likely heard about the worst of Grants Pass: homelessness, drugs, and on and on. But is that the real story? Okay, if you actually get your boots on the ground in Grants Pass, Oregon, are you going to see a town that is just overrun with homeless everywhere? Are you going to be harassed by druggies and drunks as you walk down the street? What is actually the real story? That is exactly what I'm going to show you on this video. So get ready to see the worst of Grants Pass, Oregon, so you can decide for yourself, how bad is it really? Hey, I'm Brian Simmons. I'm a licensed real estate agent here in Southern Oregon with eXp Realty. And if there's anything in the world I can do for you to help you learn, buy, or list real estate here in Southern Oregon, I hope you won't hesitate to reach out. Just give me a call or a text on my direct number, which is 541-954-7758, or feel free to drop a comment in the comment section down below, or use the link in the description of this video if you would like to meet up face-to-face. And if you like what you see in this video, which I'm not really counting on since it's a video about the worst of Grants Pass, but if you do, then click that like button, hit the subscribe icon, and check out some of my other videos about the different parts of Southern Oregon. One thing that I want to make very clear in this video is that my goal here is simply to show you what is actually going on in real life in Grants Pass, Oregon. I'm not trying to paint a picture of the town being perfect, and I'm certainly not trying to paint a picture of the town being a dump. I'm just trying to show you what it actually really is in real life so that you can decide with your own eyes whether or not it's a place that you might want to consider living in, okay? And lots of people are moving to Grants Pass, Oregon, or relocating to Southern Oregon cities all across Jackson and Josephine counties, and for good reason, okay? But if you look at social media or even some of the comments on my videos here on this channel, you might be wondering, why in the world would anybody want to live in Grants Pass? So it's time to set the record straight and show you what all these, rundown parks look like. And so you can see for yourself whether or not you think they've been really, overtaken by homeless and what they really look like in general. So I'm looking forward to showing you the 5 biggest and most popular parks in the Grants Pass area. I'm going to show you exactly what they look like, and you will be able to make your own decision on what you think. So we're going to go ahead and dive right in. So we are starting with Riverside Park, which has been at the epicenter of this homeless crisis issue for some time. It's probably the most iconic park in Grants Pass, with the best location, right along the river, very, very close to downtown. And a lot of people, myself included, have memories of playing in this park, as a kid on all the old logging equipment and mining equipment that they had there that you could climb all over. It was really fun. But over the years, the park and the areas around it have been more frequently used as a homeless camp and for drug deals, leading to a series of issues and really, really unfortunate events, culminating with a homicide in May of 2023. And it's an incredibly sad story. And it ultimately led to the city of Grants Pass shutting the park down for a month to make some changes and address the public safety concern, okay? And the park has since reopened with a new set of regulations really aimed at cracking down on the types of activities that were taking place there that were leading to, the safety concerns and the crime, okay? The new rules address portable structures like tents within a certain distance of walking paths and playgrounds, and they address things like utilizing public restrooms and that sort of stuff. And in my opinion, the new rules appear to be pretty effective, and the park sure didn't feel overran or unsafe to me personally, but you can see the pictures and you be the judge. So moving on to our next park, we are going to talk about Reinhart Park, which is also known as the All Sports Park, which is one of the largest parks in Grants Pass, if not the largest. And I've talked about all the great amenities of this park in several of my other videos about Grants Pass, including my Locals Guide to Grants Pass, Oregon, which I'll include a link to right up here. It is a beautiful park that borders the river, and it has all sorts of great things going on. And the general feel at this park is pretty good, in my opinion. It sure didn't seem to be overran by homeless, like some would lead you to believe. And in fact, I don't even remember seeing anyone camped out at Reinhart Park. And I've been through it, a number of times for family pictures or videos for this channel, or playing with the kids, or baseball or softball games, and on, okay? And I don't ever recall any sort of encounter, or I certainly don't recall ever feeling unsafe or anything like that. But again, these are the pictures of the park, and you can make your own judgment on whether or not you think it seems overran and unsafe. Next up is Gilbert Creek Park on the north end of town, and this park is one that I fully expected to see some homeless activity, primarily because I've driven by it and seen people camp there before or living out of their cars, but really, I still wouldn't go as far as saying it's overrun by homeless. I still also see plenty of people, using the tennis courts or the playground or the walking paths and the soccer field. So my guess is that it just gets some of this homeless traffic because there aren't many other parks in that part of town, and it does have a public restroom. So I would imagine that's kind of what's leading to some of that, activity there. But again, it really didn't seem, in my opinion, to be very, overran. So Pearce Park is next on our list, and this is actually a Josephine County park instead of a City of Grants Pass park. So it's just outside of town, and it's super popular, okay? They have a huge play structure that's really, I think it's brand new. Tons of walking paths, day use facilities, an 18-hole disc golf course, and river access. It really is a fantastic park. It's off the beaten path, and so I wouldn't expect to see much in terms of homeless camps and that sort of stuff, and tents and tarps. But I'm sure you probably get the random car camper here and there. But I don't see a lot of that in the times that I've been there, okay? I know a lot of people who prefer this park over many others due to the nice big playground and just the generally, safe feel that you get here. But again, take a look at these pictures and you decide for yourself if it's one that you would like to visit. So now on to our last park, which is Morrison Centennial Park. And this is kind of on the south side of town. And this was probably the most popular homeless camp on the day that we shot our footage. Okay, so you can see there definitely are some camps, but would you call that overrun? You decide. If I personally pulled up there on this day with my kids to go play at the park, I hate to say it, but I'd probably turn around and find another place. But that's just me. You may have a different opinion, but this is probably the worst of what we had seen on the day that we shot footage at all the different parks. Okay, so this is, what I would call the worst of Grants Pass, this footage right here that you're seeing. I've heard a lot of people talk about solutions to homelessness and ask things like, why don't we just make it illegal to camp and loiter in public places and all those types of things, right? Well, Grants Pass is actually in the middle of some serious litigation about that exact thing. Grants Pass does have local laws against camping in parks and even has laws that allow officers to exclude people from parks who have been issued multiple citations, but those local laws were ruled as violating the federal constitution as cruel and unusual punishment. So they can't enforce those laws, okay? But they can enforce laws related to people doing illegal activities like going to the bathroom in a public place, or drinking alcohol in the park, or even doing drugs. But even the drugs is a really hard one now, since the state of Oregon decriminalized the possession of most drugs like opioids, heroin, meth, cocaine, and fentanyl even. All are illegal to possess in small quantities. So that makes it incredibly difficult for law enforcement to really do anything about this issue, which I know is very frustrating for them. So I had an off-the-record conversation with a member of the law enforcement community, and the general attitude was one of frustration, okay? They know that these issues exist, and they would love to help clean up the parks so that families feel safe taking their kids there and enjoying those public spaces, okay? But their hands are just tied. The pending litigation involving the city of Grants Pass will have a big impact on how all of this unfolds going forward, so I will certainly do my best to keep you updated there. Now, there are a few things I want to explain about the homelessness crisis in Oregon overall, because there certainly is a problem, and there is also a solution that doesn't involve just kicking people out of the parks and moving them to a different part of town. First off, Oregon has the 4th largest homeless population per capita in the entire country after Washington, D.C., California, and Vermont, and the crisis is growing at an above average pace. But why? Okay. Oregon Public Broadcasting, the OPB, did a really good write-up about the history of homelessness in Oregon, and they talked about how we got here where we are today. And I'll post a link to that article in the description of this video if you want to give it a read, but I'll give you the kind of spoiler alert, which is that the government mismanagement is how we got here, okay? And that article says, I'll read you a little piece of it. It says, Oregon began shutting down its large psychiatric facilities and poor farms, that's their term, in the 1980s and 90s, okay? The state's plan was to replace these institutions with smaller community-based treatment facilities, and that never happened. Instead, rising housing and healthcare costs forced many people with serious mental illnesses into homelessness. And that was just the start of it, okay? So to make matters worse, the state has failed for decades to develop enough housing to keep up with its growing population, okay? Now, it's not the state's responsibility to build houses. We all know that, okay? But it is the state who makes it extremely difficult for developers to build housing. So when you have a limited supply and increasing demand, prices go up, and that squeezes out the people who are already struggling to afford housing. So where do they go? They become homeless, okay? And the article goes on to say that Oregon's current housing supply is short roughly 140,000 homes to meet the demands of its population size. And this places the state fourth in the country in terms of underproducing housing. And the article goes on to say that up until the 2010s, there was a lot of slack in the housing market, making it affordable for nonprofits to cover rents, okay? And those vacancy rates began to dip as Portland saw its population balloon by nearly 100,000 between 2005 and 2015. And as rents skyrocketed in Oregon cities in the past decade, some people experiencing homelessness moved to smaller Oregon towns seeking affordable housing and work, like Grants Pass, which didn't always pan out, okay? Others born and raised in smaller communities simply found they could no longer afford rent or a mortgage in their hometown, and they moved into a tent or a car. Like in the cities, the crisis was worsened by a lack of housing. Available housing evaporated as formerly affordable homes turned into lucrative vacation rentals in small coastal towns, and it continued to shrink when new construction failed to bounce back in small communities after the 2008 recession, despite population growth, okay? While homelessness first appeared in Oregon's larger cities and now has taken root across the state, and in 2022, Oregon ranked among the states with the largest rural homeless populations in the country, with an estimated 3,208 rural Oregonians living outside on any given evening, okay? And I've said it in a number of my videos, but this problem has a relatively simple solution, and it is simply to build more housing. But why isn't that happening? It's because the state and the local governments make it so dang expensive and create so many ridiculous hoops to jump through in regards to zoning and land use that developers are just deterred from developing. And I am one, so I can tell you this from firsthand experience. The red tape is ridiculous, okay? The Cato Institute put out a list every year called the Freedom in the 50 States, and it looks at a variety of issues, and it ranks each state's regulations in a bunch of those areas. And you can say what you want to say about that organization, but the point is that they rank all 50 states. And if they're biased against, liberal states, for example, then at least they would be biased against all of them, right? So guess where Oregon ranks when it comes to land use across the whole country? Dead last, okay? They comment, land use has been a controversial issue in Oregon, and the Beaver State is indeed more regulated in this department than all other states. It's been quite onerous for years and continues to get worse. That is the problem, okay? And the homelessness crisis is a complex one, but the lack of development exacerbates the issue, and it starts with the state's regulations. As an example of how simple a solution can be, if the state and the local governments just made it legal and easy to put an ADU, an accessory dwelling unit, on your property, that alone could have a massive impact in helping with this issue, okay? It would create rentals, and it would also make more homes affordable, because the rent that the homeowner receives for renting out that ADU would help cover the cost of their mortgage. And I explained this exact scenario in much more detail in one of my recent videos, and I'm going to put a link to that right up here so that you can check that out if you're more interested in hearing more about those details. But what it really comes down to is this, okay? There are rules and laws in place, and there are people who are tasked with enforcing those rules and laws, no matter how ridiculous and counterproductive they are. It is what it is, right? That's just where we're at, okay? And the answer is to create more housing. The developers aren't doing that because of the state's horrible land use regulations, and the state needs to incentivize the developers to develop and allow property owners to build ADUs. And if we could do that, the homelessness crisis would be significantly improved if those things could happen. So that is the scoop on the homelessness crisis in Grants Pass and really beyond, okay? There's plenty of video here for you to review and to make a decision yourself on whether or not those areas around Grants Pass look or feel unsafe. I'll tell you that in my own experience, I've never felt unsafe in Grants Pass, in downtown, in the parks, nowhere. But maybe we're different, and I'm sure there's probably people who have felt that. But that's why I thought it would be important to show you the real footage so that you can decide for yourself whether or not this looks like a place that's run down or a place that you would want to raise your family. So I hope this was of value to you. Again, I'm Brian Simmons with eXp Realty here in Southern Oregon. I'm a licensed real estate agent. And if there's anything I can do to help you learn, buy, or list real estate here in Southern Oregon, I hope you will not hesitate to reach out. You can call me or text me directly at 541-954-7758. And of course, I'd love to hear from you in the comment section down below. So please feel free to drop a comment down there, okay? And if you like this video, I would love it if you clicked on that like button, hit the subscribe icon so that you don't miss out on any of my next videos about Southern Oregon. I'm releasing new videos every single week. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you on the next video. Take care.